What if? What if you discovered the secret? You know, that everything you've been taught about marketing your business is wrong. That every one of your competitors is using tactical marketing. And to be candid, it simply doesn't work anymore. Greetings, everyone, and welcome from the Technology Association of Georgia. It's August 11th, 2015, and this is Tech Talk. I'm your host, Frank Baia. Up to the Tech Talk, throwing away hard-earned money on marketing that will never work, and how you can drastically reduce your marketing budget while increasing your sales and leads. Up to the Tech Talk, Philip Lewis and Stacey Sagues. Industry leaders recognized as top customer-centric strategic business executives. More than subject matter experts, these are trusted advisors to a long and impressive list of clients. Their strengths include securing robust revenue streams with a keen eye on forging synergetic relationships and strategic alliances. Bottom line, they provide the leadership to form key business partners, driving the achievement of win-win scenarios for the benefit of all parties. Sound good? Find out more as the Tech Talk turns to enhancing revenue and profits in today's digital economy. And discover what is the most compelling offer a business should make to its customers. As we Tech Talk with co-founders of Profit Enhancement Group, Philip Lewis and Stacey Sagues. This edition of Tech Talk is brought to you by GlobalSpeak.com, new media consultants, corporate video and audio communications, video and audio production and distribution, live and virtual event production. Tag TV and Tag Radio is a service of GlobalSpeak.com, creatively delivering powerful marketing, video, and audio solutions. Philip, Stacey, welcome to Tech Talk.
Hi, Frank. How are you today?
Well, I'm great. Hello, Stacey. I'm sorry for interrupting you there. Welcome, and glad to have you today on Tech Talk. I think probably, one of the things on Tech Talk we get an opportunity to do is we cross every vertical. We don't just do them individually like, say, for example, internet security or fintech, financial technologies, or health IT. We go horizontally across all of them. And I think today is a subject where we're going to be of importance to every one of those verticals, because here we're not talking specifically about any particular industry or segment of that industry. We're talking about business and sound, good business in a very competitive marketplace. And I think the emphasis, as I know you guys are, is on strategic business excellence as it relates to small and medium-sized businesses. So one of the things I want to start out with, I'll throw it out at you, Philip, and that is, what can you do? I mean, what can a company do to really improve or enhance their revenues or profits?
Well, Frank, basically what a business can do is first and foremost make sure they've developed a strategic plan so they know where they're headed. And what we frequently see in talking with businesses, and it's a common problem for small, medium, and large businesses, is they get so focused on what they're doing on a day-to-day basis that they don't always remember where they're going. An analogy we like to use is it's kind of like the problem with texting while driving. When you take your eyes off the road, you're likely to crash. And so we try to encourage folks to remember that if they stay focused strategically, they're going to perform better, because then everybody's in alignment, because the plan was set. We're all headed in this direction, so let's just make sure we stay focused, headed in that direction.
I think, one of the things that I've heard over the years, especially when you're talking about small business entrepreneurs, startup companies, first-generation entrepreneurs, focus. There's so much of a pressure to get distracted by the so many things that it takes to run a business. I guess, Stacey, I'll throw this out at you. What do you find to be the biggest problem with focus, and is it a case where do they remember that at the bottom of everything they do is the transaction, meaning the customer? So I guess my question is, do you find most companies lose their focus when it comes to customers?
Absolutely. They lose focus when it comes to their business. They lose track and start thinking about their business and not what they're offering to their customers. So they say that 90% of buying decisions are based upon emotional satisfaction and 10% on physical aspect of the transaction. And you really have to engage your own clients, and that's what we're here to do, is we're here to teach them how they're supposed to engage and how they're supposed to keep the attention of those clients.
I like the word teach. You know, the cliche about if you give a man a fish and you feed him once, but if you teach him, ideally they can go off and do it alone and consistently do it from the time they learn. I guess I'll pose this out at a open forum, and maybe both of you can kind of field the next question, and that is, since obviously, as we both kind of agree, most companies do lose their focus, is there a method? I mean, is there a way that they can actually get back on track?
Absolutely, and that's what we need to do is teach them, again, teach them what they need to do and how to do it. And, you know, the first thing that we always teach our clients to do is and we do it for them, we interrupt what they're currently doing, interrupt their thought processes by showing them how their current actions are not generating the proper results. And sometimes these conversations can get a little testy as we're, you know, proving to someone that their current thoughts aren't the thoughts that lead them to success. It's kind of like telling a mom that she has an ugly baby. It can be a tough conversation.
Well, is it a case where you conduct a situation analysis? What's the engagement process, you know, in terms of when you first encounter a customer? What do you guys go through in terms of the way to begin to understand about their business enough to know? I love the interruption aspect of it. I got a feeling like that, again, another cliche about so busy trying to make a buck that they're really not making any money. They're so out of focus that they don't even realize that there's other options. So I guess my first question before we go into the next one is, because I do want to kind of follow up on the interruption component to it, is what's the form of engagement? Do you do a form of an analysis first to determine what they're doing and what they're doing right and what they're doing wrong?
That's a really good question, Frank. We begin with an assessment of what's going on with their business, and whether we're working with a startup that's created a vision or an existing business that at one point in time might have even had a strategic plan of some form. We begin with that assessment, and then that tells us what their current state is. And we look across their sales, operations, finance, and employee engagement platforms. And then we're really focused on, do you know where you're headed? And is everybody in the room in alignment with where you're headed? And is that something that the employees, if they happen to have employees, all buy into it? Frequently, when you talk with a company that has multiple strong leaders in it, they all think that they're headed in one direction. But when you start talking about what that looks like, they come to realize, gosh, we're really not on the same page, and we need to stay focused on it. And it keeps coming back to that word focus of, this is what we're supposed to do, this is what we do each and every day. And we try to encourage folks, if it's not relevant to what you're trying to do and what your focus and your strategic plan is, then it's really counterproductive to your being in business and you ever achieving your end objectives.
Is it part attitude, part analytics, or is it more one or the other? I guess, again, I know from my past experience dealing with a lot of first-generation entrepreneurs, there's a tendency to work on precedent rather than projection. So it's very difficult for them to make a determination whether they're up or down as far as their sales are concerned as it relates to, say, the marketplace. So I guess, again, is it a case where do you get involved in an attitude change or an attitude change with literally market studies that combine some of the information as it relates to potential sales targets and operating opportunities for revenue generation?
We believe that attitude is everything, but you also have to go back to some basic business fundamentals and some accountability and performance metrics. With our role as strategists and coaches, we're not there to necessarily do things for them, but to just make them kind of see this is what you said you wanted to do, but what you're doing isn't going to get you to the destination that you say you want to achieve. And sometimes, as Stacey pointed out, some of the conversations get a little bit testy. But then when people become honest with themselves, and that's kind of one of the hallmarks of the companies that we work with, is they have what we call a getting better agenda. They've decided that even if they're profitable or making a ton of money, they're going to, as you know, businesses plateau, and we're doing great with this one plateau, but we're going to get to the next one, and it's not necessarily a linear growth pattern. Sometimes there's jumps and leaps or exponential movements that cause them to grow. But at the end of the day, the right attitude positions a company for success, because that means they're willing to adopt and to change and to do whatever is needed in the marketplace to be successful.
One of the things when you're dealing with technology and the evolution of technologies is the challenge for a lot of small businesses is to know what they don't know. You know, the challenge of how do you solve a problem if you don't really understand that you have one. So I guess really in an exploration of your process and the services that you provide, I'm thinking if you were talking now to some potential prospects and some people, and idealistically in our audience and to the TAG membership are kind of right in that target zone, what would you say to be looking for or they should be thinking about that are indications that, hey, wait a minute, we really kind of need Profit Enhancement Group because we've got that problem?
Well, I would say that, once we get through the initial assessment, or I guess take a step back from that, they need to understand that there are 5 principles of successful businesses, or 5 key areas that make a business successful. And if they recognize that there are parts of their business that aren't performing properly, they usually fall within one of those 5 areas. Are they creating enough leads? Are they converting enough of those leads to customers or clients? And are they growing the number of transactions and the size of each transaction? And are they positioning themselves to maximize their pricing? Or are they just selling on low price instead of selling on value? And lastly, growing their profits, by reviewing their financial metrics and looking at their revenue growth and cost reductions where possible.
And one of the things that frequently happens with technology-based companies, Frank, is because it's new, because it's an innovation, because it's a great idea, sometimes there's a tendency to think this is new and different and so much sharper than anything else out in the marketplace that they think that that's what's going to drive customers coming and buying from them and people wanting to do business with them. And it boils down to it's simply the product, and you've got to look at some fundamentals on how you take any type of product to market. And it's the difference between strategic and tactical. A lot of times we get involved with helping people position themselves marketing-wise, and people go, oh, you're in advertising. We're like, no. Advertising is just one of the mediums that gets used. Marketing is about attracting a customer to your business. And that focus of what have you got to do to attract a customer? And just because you've got a great technology, it's just like people with great education don't always necessarily go out and become the most successful people. So it's learning how to take that technology and communicate its relevance to the end user so that they want to buy. That's the real key to success.
I think that's a strong message to kind of maybe end with. I've got one more question I want to kind of throw at you guys because I think it would be good for our audience to get an understanding from your perspective. But I think the point that you bring out, once again, to travel in the digital economy of today, now they're calling it the innovation economy, disruption, it's not interruption, it's disruption that's happening where the ground is changing almost underneath them, that they've constantly got to reevaluate where their opportunities and potentials are. So I would think that using the Profit Enhancement Group isn't just an interesting possibility. It would be a necessity in order to compete. One last question I'll pose it to either one of you that I'd like to try to capture it, and that is, you mentioned about a business really making sure that it communicates its positioning. Is there a more compelling offer that a business can make to a customer than some other offer? What is the most compelling offer a business should make to a customer?
Well, the most compelling offer is the one that is getting inside the mind of the buyer and the customer. And 96% of all new businesses fail in the first 5 years. And the vast majority of that is driven by the fact that they've forgotten that their job is to create a customer, and they don't step back. Simple things like a focus group. So many companies don't ask their customers what it is they want. And a businessman or woman will go down the road saying, oh, this is why my customers really like me. And we'll say, have you asked any of your customers what they really like about you? And when we get around to doing those surveys or that analysis for them, frequently they're off the target and they're shocked. It's like all you had to do was ask, and you didn't do it because you thought you knew. And it's just that and it goes back to the attitude of what can I do to be better? How do I always put my customer in front of me rather than thinking that they're just going to do as I say or do as I want? what do they need, and how do I morph it and tweak it so that it becomes exactly what they want, so that leads to success of the product or the technology.
Well, clearly it's all about securing robust revenue streams, but also, as you're pointing out, forging the synergetic relationships and the strategic alliances that are sometimes not necessarily obvious to that person that's running the business on a day-to-day basis, running and not really having an opportunity to stop and take a breath. Sounds like it's a great opportunity for some of our small business people to almost get a check and find out just exactly what they think they're doing and be sure that they're doing the best that they can to get the most that they can out of the businesses that they're running. Philip, Stacey, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us for a few minutes today on Tech Talk.
You bet. Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Frank. It was great being with you.